Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. As we observe Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we are joined by our resident wellness expert, Ronald Abvajee, a renowned health and wellness expert who is dedicated to educating people about the importance of healthy living. And today, our focus is on body weight management and nutrition and how it closely aligns with breast cancer prevention, making him a valuable voice in this conversation. Join us today as we explore the relationship between body weight, diet, and breast cancer risks, and discussing the practical steps that individuals can take to reduce their chances of developing the disease. Assalamu alaikum, Ronald. Thank you for joining us once again on Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam, and always good to be with you.
I mean, I'm really glad we're delving into this conversation because breast cancer is something that affects millions of women around the world. And it is something we need to have more open conversations about, particularly when it comes to prevention and the things that you can do and alter in your lifestyle to reduce your risks of developing breast cancer. Now, as we are in the month of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, can you talk us through what is this link between body weight and your risk of developing breast cancer? Because this is the first I'm hearing of this.
So when we look at breast cancer, we know that breast cancer impacts 1 in 27 women in South Africa. We know that it accounts for over a quarter of cancers that impact women. And I want to kickstart the conversation before I segue into your question, is that we need to make healthcare more accessible for women, and that is not negotiable. It shouldn't be seen as a privilege because you can't afford to go to certain hospitals or clinics, or that it is perceived as being a selfish exercise. It should be literally a non-negotiable, and that is to kickstart this off because it does impact so many women. Now, when you look at body weight is interesting because we do know that the more weight that's on your body, and often that weight is not muscle, often it is politically correct, strategically placed padding, body fat. And we know that it puts your joints, your bones under strain and stress, your tendons and your ligaments. It puts your organs under undue stress. It impacts your heart health. Every organ in your body gets impacted when you have excess weight. But when it comes to cancer in general, because of the impact on those particular organs, the risk of cancer, and certain cancers in particular, have been shown to increase one's risk of particular cancers. Now, breast cancer and weight, there's a correlation because it's breast cancer, but it could be for any cancer. Now remember, cancer are those cells that grow abnormally within areas of the body that you don't expect them to grow abnormally. And then of course they just spread, impacting the functioning of that organ and impacting then other systems in the body as the cancer grows or metastasizes. Now weight, just because you may lose weight doesn't mean you decrease your risk exclusively, because there's other factors at play, family history, etc. But when it comes to weight, just looking after your overall health and mitigating cancer risks potentially, that is where it plays a big role.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important that we understand not just the surface level of that statement, that body weight is directly linked to breast cancer, that there are other factors that are involved. But we are learning all about breast cancer as well as prevention, and we do have some more information to share with you. Let's take a look.
How does body weight really affect breast cancer risk? And, what should we be doing about it? Because clearly weight management is an important aspect in not just preventing cancers, but, also potentially breast cancer. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, very much so. The trouble is with obesity in this country, and particularly in the female population actually, is that rely on staple foods which are completely refined. So not only are they getting no fiber in their diet at all, they are not getting enough nutrition per se. So these grains are depleted of all their nutrients. And when it comes to metabolic health, if your gut isn't working out, I must tell you that when I have a patient who comes from Limpopo or the rural areas, and they eat a lot of healthy grains, sort of whole food grains, the constipation and overweight are never such an issue. And it's also where the fat is placed in the body. So again, that's going back to that comment I made earlier about fat versus fat, because the studies have shown that you can have the same fat percentage, body fat percentage, but depending on where it is in the body will determine how sinister the effect it has on metabolism. For example, subcutaneous fat is not necessarily a bad thing at all. You may be overweight, you may not like how you look, but as long as your waist is small and you've got big thighs and bigger arms, that's fine, metabolically speaking. It's the fat that's within the organs and basically in the abdominal area, the visceral fat. That's the sinister guy. And that's really what we have to look at. So yes, certainly overweight and obesity. I know we're kind of transgressing here, but they are also connected, and we do not eat enough fiber. And when it comes to my patients who live in the city, virtually 9 out of 10 will have some gut issues. They're either on some kind of herb, and because it's a herb, it's good for you. So something like senna, black forest tea, all of these are very strong laxatives, and what they do is they create a dependency on them. So your gut then stops operating on its own, and also with that there's loss of electrolytes and leads to further nutrient depletion. It's an impossible situation to fix, and many, particularly women, are subject to this condition.
Ronald, one of the biggest questions a lot of people in our audience want to know is, I feel like I'm going to say a swear word. It's BMI. I mean, a lot of people have so many misconceptions about BMI. There are dietitians out there on the gram who will say BMI is not any form of indication of how healthy you are or how unhealthy you are. But can we talk about BMI? Can you dissect it all for us? And can you also help us figure out, when it comes to this relationship between body weight as well as your risks of cancer, how does someone who has now figured out that their weight is contributing or is a contributory risk factor to them obtaining certain diseases, what can they start to do? How do they start navigating that journey?
I love that, because BMI is a swear word to many. And I love what you said. When you look at the gram, the talk, the book, the tube, and all other ones that are out there, right? The X, it's all relation to what people are pushing out there as messages. And for me, unless those messages are from a clinically sound perspective, don't believe everything that you hear. And if you do hear something, even from someone who is clinically sound, do your own homework. And I don't mean utilize AI. I mean utilize, like, literally finding the credible resources from the World Health Organization, etc. So BMI is the acronym for Body Mass Index. And it literally looks at your height and your weight, all of your weight. So if you have a weave on, gold teeth, false teeth, if you have earrings on, if guys have coins in their pocket, and you stand on a scale, that's the measurement it utilizes. So if you take the height and the weight and you come up to a particular number, that number it fits into ranges. The range of 19 or 20 lower than that means that you are underweight. If you're looking at 19, 20, for men and women, I'm giving the averages, to about 23, it's within the normal weight. But if you look at 23 to 28, 29, you're known as obese. If you look at 30 plus, morbidly obese, which means your obesity could lead to death. So the problem with that measurement is that it doesn't take into consideration muscle, bone, and anything else. I mean, I've seen people strip down to stand onto that scale to weigh less. So it's a measure that for me is not a true indicator. It was a previous indicator utilized by medical professionals and health professionals, but that has shown to not be as effective in identifying are you overweight or not. Because what we need to look at is how much of adipose or fatty tissue you have versus muscle. And the one measurement they are utilizing now is the waist to hip ratio. Tape measure around the narrowest part of your waist and then around your hip. And you divide the one by the other and you come up to particular ratios again. So if you are between 0.9 and 0.6 for a man, you're okay, because it looks at truncal obesity. And that's where a lot of the concern lies. So body mass index for me is not a true indicator of clinical measures, but it is an indicator, and you would know, if you can grab your belly with both hands and not grab everything, you know you're overweight. And that for me is a concern. Now, the excess weight that you carry or excess body fat tissue literally sits around the truncal regions more often than not. For women, it's also the pear shape down from the hip bone right down to the knee. And for men, mainly in this area and a little bit on the thighs for men. So men are more apple-shaped in that instance. And when you look at it from that basis, you're putting your body under undue stress to fuel that extra weight, but also impacts your metabolism and functioning of the organs. The heart has to work more, etc., etc. So rather look at it from a perspective, if you can't measure your body fat percentage versus your muscle, which you can use a bioelectrical impedance scale for, which will give you that, then you know what you need to do in which quadrant of the body, but utilize the waist to hip ratio, which is a very simple measurement that shows truncal obesity and risk of diabetes and or hypertension as well, just as an indicator due to your weight. Now, what can you do about it? Yes, I know many people hide it in baggy clothes, they hide it in these extra large kurtas. Yes, gents, I'm calling them out. And when you look at that, you can't hide away from ill health. You can't hide away from being overweight because we all know the risk it has. You start off firstly, if you are overweight, is to and or obese. There's a difference between the two. That if you are carrying excess body fat and it's uncomfortable for you, one, you go to your doctor to get medical clearance, firstly. Because if you have hypertension, cholesterol risks, etc., or cancer risks or anything else of the sort, arthritis risks as well, get clearance from your medical doctor. Then you don't start running a marathon. You then have to go to, I would suggest that you then do a physical examination with a biokineticist because they are exercise specialists. They will then do a clinical evaluation to pick up any other nuances and then can design a program for you, and you start slowly. But that has to be done in conjunction with a nutritionist and healthy eating. Healthy eating is not necessarily bland, but you got to marry the two together as a starting point and know that you're going to be stacking micro habits. Even if you start walking for 5 minutes a day for the first week, then 7 the next week, and then 10 the following week, and then 20 the following week, you're stacking the habits. And even if you cut out carbs and processed foods, you're stacking those habits. And cumulative stacking of the habits leads to compound health benefit. And guess what? The strategically placed padding will melt away.
Thank you for sharing, Ronald. I think a lot of people are going to be very grateful to receive that information when it comes to BMI, especially also considering how to actually start living that healthy lifestyle. It's not bombarding yourself with everything all at once, but taking it step by step and starting slowly and building on from there. I know that breast cancer awareness is something you're very passionate about, and there are a lot of misconceptions out there. But in your opinion, what are the biggest misconceptions that you personally have encountered that you would like to debunk this evening?
Fantastic. Number one is, if you do your self examinations for as a woman and as a man, and you don't have to do it every day. Once a week is fine, once every 2 weeks is okay, and you do pick up a lump. The lump does not mean you have breast cancer, it just means that there's a lump. Go to your doctor and let them do a test to see if it is cancerous or not. So a lump doesn't mean you have breast cancer. Number two, a bra does not cause breast cancer. It does not cause that. Number three, many people assume that the pill or the contraception that they're on could cause breast cancer. The research has shown that it doesn't. And then number four is that it's only exclusive to women. So men cannot get breast cancer. That is also a fallacy because we discussed this previously, that men can also get breast cancer. It's not as prevalent because we don't have that much mammary gland tissue or fatty tissue around our breasts, but we can get impacted by it. And the sad thing is that when men do get impacted, because we think it's a woman-only issue, it metastasizes and we die a lot more from breast cancer, and our survival rates actually get decreased because we catch it too late. And the last thing, self-examination is critical. Know your family history. Go for your mammograms if you're at that particular age. And those three things on its own can help early detection of breast cancer, which can mean you could have a 95% survival rate if you do get breast cancer and catch it early.
Ronald, thank you so much for those tips and pieces of advice. I think in addressing those misconceptions, you also provided a lot of very vital information, particularly for the men out there as well. So thank you for bringing this conversation to us this evening and for shedding some light and some much needed information, because information is power, especially when it comes to our health. So thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was our resident wellness expert, Ronald Abvajee, talking about all things breast cancer. I love that he highlighted the importance of making healthcare something that is accessible to every single person in South Africa, and that is absolutely a point of conversation we need to continue on in ensuring that all women have access to this kind of healthcare and these kind of checks on an annual basis, that they're allowed to go and do their mammograms, even if they don't have the money to be able to do so. But do engage with us on our social media platforms and let us know if you have any further questions when it comes to breast cancer. We would love to hear from you as well. But we hope you enjoyed debunking those myths, as well as understanding a bit more about BMI and the relation between body weight and your risks of developing cancer as well.